He built Caesar's Palace. He invented the modern Vegas mega resort. But when Jay Sarno died in 1984, broke and forgotten in a hotel suite he no longer owned, Las Vegas erased him from history. No statue, no museum exhibit, no plaque. This is the story of the man who changed the Strip forever and the final casino he tried to build, a 7,000-room monument to excess that would have made everything else look like a roadside motel if anyone had given him the money to build it. The Dreamer from Missouri. Jay Sarno was born in 1922 in St. Joseph, Missouri, a town famous for being where Jesse James got shot and not much else. His father ran a small grocery store. The family had nothing, but Jay had something his father did not: vision. The kind of vision that makes you see possibilities where everyone else sees dust. He was short, maybe 5'6" on a good day, with a round face and thick glasses that made him look more like an accountant than a dreamer. But Jay Sarno could sell anything. He could walk into a room and make you believe in things that did not exist yet. That is a dangerous gift. It can make you rich or it can destroy you. Sometimes both. After high school, Jay headed to the University of Missouri, where he studied business, but college was not where he learned to hustle. That came from watching his father scrape by, watching men with no education build fortunes, watching the world reward audacity over intelligence. By the time World War II started, Jay had already figured out the game. You did not work for other people. You made other people work for you. He served in the Army during the war, came back to Missouri, and tried his hand at a few ventures. Tile contracting. That is where the money started. Jay realized that the post-war building boom meant everyone needed tile for bathrooms, kitchens, and commercial buildings. He became a tile contractor in Kansas City, then branched out into construction. By the early 1950s, Jay Sarno was making real money. But Kansas City was too small for him. He looked south to Atlanta, where the Sun Belt was exploding with growth. In 1958, Jay built his first motel, the Cabana. It wasn't just a place to sleep. It was a destination. Themed rooms, luxurious amenities, a pool that looked like something out of Hollywood. The Cabana was a hit. Jay built more. The Cabana chain spread across Atlanta, Dallas, Palo Alto. Each property bigger, each one more extravagant. Here's the thing. Jay Sarno didn't just build motels, he built fantasies. He understood something that most hoteliers in the 1950s and 60s didn't. People didn't want a clean bed and a hot shower. They wanted to feel special. They wanted to escape their ordinary lives. Give them marble instead of linoleum. Give them a fountain instead of a parking lot. Charge them 3 times as much and they'll thank you for it. By the early 1960s, Jay was worth millions, but Atlanta couldn't hold him either, because Jay had been to Las Vegas and he'd seen the future. Back then, Vegas was still old Vegas. The Sands, the Flamingo, the Desert Inn. These were nice joints, don't get me wrong. Frank Sinatra played there. The Rat Pack made them legendary, but they were small. Motor lodges with casinos attached. You could build something like that anywhere. Jay Sarno wanted to build something that could only exist in Las Vegas, something so big, so audacious, so impossibly extravagant that it would redefine what a casino resort could be. He called it Caesar's Palace. And to build it, he made a deal with the devil, Caesar's Palace. When a tile salesman changed Vegas. Let me take you back to 1962. Jay Sarno had his Atlanta motel empire. He had millions in the bank. He had a vision for a resort in Las Vegas that would cost $14 million to build. The problem? Banks would not touch him. A tile salesman from Missouri with no casino experience wanted to build the biggest resort on the Strip? Forget it. So Jay went to the only people who would give him money, the Teamsters Central States Pension Fund, in other words, the mob. Jimmy Hoffa controlled that pension fund like it was his personal piggy bank. And the mob used it to finance Vegas casinos when legitimate banks said no. The Stardust got Teamsters money. The Fremont got Teamsters money. Now, Caesar's Palace would too. $10.5 million came from the pension fund. The rest came from private investors with names like Jerome Zarowitz and Nate Jacobson, men who had connections to Meyer Lansky and the boys in Chicago. Jay did not care where the money came from. He cared about building his dream. Construction began in 1964 on 34 acres across from the Flamingo, and from day one, Caesar's Palace was different. No cowboy theme, no tropical nonsense. Jay Sarno reached back 2,000 years to ancient Rome. Marble columns, Roman statues, toga-clad cocktail waitresses, a replica of Michelangelo's David, standing 14 feet tall in the entrance. The whole thing was designed to make you feel like Caesar himself. The main building was shaped like an ellipse. Curved walls, no sharp corners. The idea was to create a sense of flow, of grandeur, of endless space. The casino floor was massive, 30,000 square feet. The hotel tower rose 14 stories, with 680 rooms. Each room had its own climate control, oversized beds, luxurious bathrooms. No Motel 6 nonsense here. But the real genius was the entrance. Most casinos sat right on the strip, hustling tourists off the sidewalk, not Caesar's. Jay built a long driveway lined with Italian cypress trees. You could not just walk into Caesar's Palace. You had to be driven in, like royalty arriving at the Forum. And when you got to the entrance, there were fountains. Massive, roaring fountains with Roman statues rising from the water. It was theater. It was spectacle. It was everything Las Vegas would become. Caesar's Palace. Opened on August 5, 1966. Opening night was chaos. Andy Williams performed. The casino was packed. High rollers flew in from across the country. And Jay Sarno stood in the middle of it all, watching his vision come to life. He had done it. A tile salesman from Missouri had built the most famous casino in the world. The resort made money immediately, millions in the first year. By 1968, Caesar's was the most profitable casino on the Strip. Jay expanded, adding the Olympia Room showroom, the Bacchanal restaurant where waitresses dressed as goddesses served you grapes and wine while you reclined on Roman couches. It was absurd. It was excessive. It worked. Jay Sarno had proven something. You could charge more, build bigger, go further over the top, and people would pay for it. Caesar's Palace changed the economics of Las Vegas. It showed that a resort could be a destination in itself. You did not come to Vegas and stay at Caesar's. You came to Vegas to stay at Caesar's. But here is the problem with borrowed money and mob connections. You never really own what you build. By 1969, Jay was being pushed out of his own creation. The Teamsters wanted control. The hidden investors wanted their cut. Jay fought them in court, lost, and in 1969, he sold his interest in Caesar's Palace for $10.5 million. The same amount the Teamsters had loaned him to build it. He walked away from the most famous casino in the world with nothing but cash and another vision burning in his head. A vision that would become his second empire and his first disaster. Jay Sarno had money, again. $10.5 million from the Caesar's sale. And he had another idea. If Caesar's Palace was for high rollers, his next project would be for everyone else. Families, kids, working-class tourists who could not afford to lose $1,000 at the baccarat table. He called it Circus Circus. The concept was brilliant on paper. A casino where circus acts performed above the gambling floor. Acrobats swinging from trapezes while you played blackjack. Clowns juggling while you fed quarters into slot machines. It would be family-friendly, affordable, and completely unique. You could bring your kids to Vegas and actually have something for them to do. Construction began in 1967 on the north end of the Strip. Jay designed it himself. A massive pink and white big-top tent rising over the casino. Inside, a midway level with carnival games and circus acts. Below, the casino floor with low-limit tables and cheap slots. The whole thing cost $12 million. Circus Circus opened on October 18, 1968, and it was an immediate catastrophe. First problem, the circus acts were loud, unbearably loud. You could not hear yourself think over the calliope music, the barkers, and the kids screaming on the midway. Gamblers hated it. They came to Vegas to focus, to chase their luck in peace, not to listen to elephants stomping overhead. Second problem, families did not gamble. Parents brought their kids to see the circus acts, spent a few bucks on carnival games, and left without ever hitting the casino floor. The people who wanted to gamble were driven away by the noise. The people who came for the circus did not want to gamble. Jay had built a resort that alienated both audiences. Third problem, there was no hotel, none. Jay ran out of money before he could build one. So Circus Circus had a casino, a circus, and nowhere for people to sleep. Tourists had to stay somewhere else and drive over just to visit. It made no sense. The reviews were brutal. Life magazine called it the most fantastic, peculiar, and unsuccessful casino in Las Vegas history. Gamblers avoided it. Families came once and never returned. Circus Circus bled money from day one. Jay tried to fix it. He brought in better acts, adjusted the midway layout, tinkered with the sound system. Nothing worked. By 1970, Circus Circus was failing so badly that Jay could not make his loan payments. The creditors closed in. The same Teamsters pension fund that had financed Caesars now owned Circus Circus. And they forced Jay out. In 1974, the property was sold to William Bennett and William Pennington, two businessmen who understood what Jay never did. You cannot run a family casino without a hotel. They built hotel towers, toned down the circus acts, kept the low-limit gambling, and turned Circus Circus into one of the most profitable casinos in Las Vegas. Eventually, it became the foundation for Mandalay Resort Group, which would build the Luxor, Excalibur, and Mandalay Bay. But none of that success belonged to Jay Sarno. He was gone by then, pushed out, humiliated, broke again. Caesar's palace had been taken from him. Circus Circus had destroyed him. And now he had nothing but one final vision: the biggest, most impossible resort anyone had ever conceived. He called it the Grandissimo, the casino that never was. This is where the story gets tragic. Jay Sarno spent the last 14 years of his life chasing a dream that everyone told him was impossible. And he kept chasing it anyway, burning through money, burning through relationships, burning through his own health, until there was nothing left but blueprints and regret. The Grandissimo was conceived in 1970. Jay had just lost Circus Circus. He was humiliated, angry, desperate to prove he could still build something great. And the Grandissimo would be the greatest resort in history, not just in Las Vegas, in the world. 7,000 rooms. Let that number sink in. In 1970, the biggest hotel on the Strip had maybe 1,000 rooms. Jay wanted 7,000. 14 towers surrounding a central plaza, each tower 40 stories tall. A casino floor so massive you could fit 3 football fields inside it. A shopping mall, not a few boutique stores. An actual indoor shopping mall with 100 stores, restaurants, movie theaters, everything you would find in a suburban mall, all inside the resort. The theme would be Italian Renaissance. Marble everywhere, replicas of the Trevi Fountain, gondolas floating through artificial canals, frescoes painted on every ceiling. Caesar's Palace on steroids, Caesar's Palace multiplied by 10. The projected cost was $250 million. In 1970, that was an unimaginable sum. The most expensive resort ever built in Vegas at that point was Caesar's, which had cost $14 million. Jay wanted to spend 17 times that amount. He hired architects. He commissioned scale models. There are stories, maybe true, maybe legend, about a model of the Grandissimo that took up an entire warehouse with tiny trees, tiny fountains, tiny people walking through the tiny plaza. Jay would show it to investors, to bankers, to anyone who would listen. And everyone who saw it said the same thing. It is impossible. Here is the thing. The Grandissimo was not just impossible because of the cost. It was impossible because of the logistics. 7,000 rooms meant you would need a staff of 10,000 people. Where would they park? How would you feed them? The resort would need its own power plant, its own water treatment facility, its own transportation system, just to move guests from one tower to another. And even if you could build it, who would come? In 1970, Las Vegas had maybe 10 million visitors a year. The Grandissimo would need to capture a huge chunk of that market just to break even. One bad year, one recession, one shift in tourism, and the whole thing would collapse. Jay did not care. He believed in the Grandissimo the way religious fanatics believe in prophecy. He spent years trying to raise money. He went back to the Teamsters. They said no. He approached legitimate banks. They laughed him out of the room. He talked to private investors, to mob figures, to anyone with deep pockets. Nobody would touch it. By 1975, Jay was running out of time and money. He tried to scale down the project. Maybe not 7,000 rooms, maybe 4,000. Maybe not 14 towers, maybe 8. But every time he scaled it down, it became less grand, less impossible, less grandissimo. And if it was not the biggest resort in history, what was the point? The IRS started circling. Jay had tax problems, serious ones. The government claimed he owed millions in unpaid taxes from the Caesars and Circus Circus years. They alleged he had been skimming, hiding income, using shell companies to avoid paying what he owed. Jay denied everything, but the investigations dragged on. Legal fees piled up. The Grandissimo fundraising got even harder when potential investors saw that the IRS was breathing down his neck. By 1978, Jay was living off loans from friends and whatever consulting fees he could scrape together. He sold his house. He sold his cars. He moved into a suite at Caesar's Palace, the casino he'd built, now owned by someone else, and he stayed there on credit because where else could he go? The Grandissimo consumed him. It became an obsession, a madness. He talked about it constantly. He showed the blueprints to anyone who would look. He revised the plans, adjusted the towers, recalculated the costs, but nobody was listening anymore. In the early 1980s, Vegas was changing. Steve Wynn was buying up properties. Corporate money was moving in. The era of the independent dreamer, the tile salesman who could talk his way into a Teamster's loan, that era was over. Jay kept trying, even as his health declined, even as the IRS closed in, even as everyone told him to let it go. The Grandissimo never got built. Not a single foundation was poured. Not a single tower was raised. It existed only in Jay's mind, in those blueprints, in that warehouse model that probably got thrown away years ago. And maybe that is the real tragedy. Not that Jay Sarno failed to build the Grandissimo, but that Las Vegas never gave him the chance to fail spectacularly. Because if anyone could have pulled it off, if anyone could have talked 7,000 people into staying in a Renaissance-themed mega resort in the middle of the desert, it was Jay. But the money never came, and the dream stayed a dream. Mob money and IRS problems. Let me be clear about something. Jay Sarno was not a mobster. He didn't carry a gun. He didn't order hits. He wasn't sitting in back rooms dividing up skim money with Chicago underbosses. But he was absolutely, undeniably connected to organized crime. You couldn't build in Vegas in the 1960s without mob money, and Jay took that money with both hands. The Teamsters Central States Pension Fund wasn't just a loan program for legitimate businessmen. It was a slush fund controlled by Jimmy Hoffa and used by organized crime to finance their Las Vegas operations. When the Teamsters loaned Jay $10.5 million for Caesar's Palace, that money came with strings. Hidden partners, unreported investors, skim operations that pulled cash off the casino floor before it ever got counted for tax purposes. Jay knew. Of course he knew. He wasn't stupid, but he also knew that without the Teamsters, Caesar's Palace never gets built. So he made the deal. He shook hands with men whose last names ended in vowels. He signed paperwork that listed investors he'd never met. And he looked the other way when cash disappeared from the count room. The problem is, the IRS does not look the other way. By 1973, federal investigators were deep into Vegas casino operations. They were building cases against the Chicago outfit, the Kansas City mob, and the Teamsters. And Jay Sarno's name kept appearing in documents. In 1975, the IRS hit Jay with a tax evasion case. They claimed he owed millions in unpaid taxes from the Caesar's Palace and Circus Circus years. The government alleged that Jay had been hiding income, using offshore accounts, and accepting under the table payments from hidden investors who wanted their skim money cleaned. Jay denied everything. His lawyers fought the case for years. But the IRS had bank records, financial statements, testimony from former employees who had seen the cash moving through back channels. The case dragged on through the late 70s, bleeding Jay dry with legal fees. Then came the criminal referral. In 1978, federal prosecutors considered charging Jay with conspiracy to defraud the United States. The potential charges were serious. If convicted, Jay could face prison time. Real time. Not some country club minimum security. Federal prison, where old men die. Jay's lawyers cut a deal. He agreed to pay a portion of the back taxes, admitted to some accounting irregularities, and avoided criminal prosecution. But the financial damage was catastrophic. Jay was broke. The man who had built Caesar's Palace, who had revolutionized the Las Vegas Strip, who had envisioned a 7,000-room resort, was now living on borrowed money in a hotel suite he did not own. Here is what nobody talks about. The mob connections that built Jay's empire also destroyed it. When you borrow from the Teamsters, you do not just owe money. You owe loyalty. You owe silence. And when the feds start asking questions, you either cooperate and die, or you stay quiet and go broke. Jay stayed quiet. He never testified against the Teamsters. He never named names. He never gave up the hidden investors at Caesar's Palace. Maybe that was honor. Maybe it was fear. Either way, it cost him everything. By 1980, Jay Sarno was a ghost in his own city. The casinos he had built were thriving. Caesar's Palace was printing money. Circus Circus had been turned around and was now one of the most profitable properties on the Strip. But Jay had nothing. No ownership stake, no royalties, no legacy except the buildings themselves. And those buildings did not carry his name. The final days. In the early 1980s, if you walked through Caesar's Palace, you might have seen him. A short, heavy-set man in his early 60s, wearing thick glasses, shuffling through the casino floor like a tourist. Most people did not recognize him. Why would they? Jay Sarno's name was not on the marquee. There were no plaques honoring him as the founder. Caesar's Palace had moved on. But Jay was still there, living in a suite on credit, too broke to leave, too proud to disappear. His health was failing. Decades of stress, a bad diet, and heartbreak had wrecked his body. He had heart problems, serious ones. His doctors told him to slow down, to stop chasing the Grandissimo, to let it go. He did not listen. He still met with investors occasionally, still pitched the 7,000-room dream, and still carried the blueprints in a worn leather case. But nobody was buying anymore. The meetings got shorter. The rejections got quieter. By 1983, Jay had stopped trying. His friends from the old days did not come around much. Some were dead. Some were in prison. Some had just moved on to the next big thing. Las Vegas does not reward nostalgia. it rewards what is next. Jay spent his final year mostly alone. He would sit in the Caesar's Palace restaurants, eating meals he could not pay for, running up tabs that management quietly forgave, because what were they going to do? Kick out the man who built the place. He watched the Strip change. He watched new resorts rise. He watched the corporate money move in. He watched Las Vegas become exactly what he had envisioned, a city of impossible dreams and extravagant excess, and he watched himself get erased from the story. On July 27, 1984, Jay Sarno suffered a massive heart attack in his suite at Caesar's Palace. He was 62 years old. Paramedics rushed him to the hospital, but it was too late. The man who had built the most famous casino in the world died with almost nothing in his bank account. There was no public funeral, no memorial service at Caesar's Palace, no moment of silence on the Strip. The Las Vegas newspapers ran brief obituaries noting that Jay Sarno, builder of Caesar's Palace and Circus Circus, had died. And then everyone moved on. His family buried him quietly. And Las Vegas forgot what Vegas erased. Here is what you will not find in Las Vegas today. You will not find a statue of Jay Sarno. You will not find a plaque at Caesar's Palace that reads "Built by Jay Sarno in 1966. You will not find a museum exhibit about the man who invented the modern mega resort. You will not find his name in the Nevada Gaming Hall of Fame. You will find his buildings. Caesar's Palace still stands, bigger than ever. The original 14-story tower is dwarfed now by newer additions, but it is still there. The Roman statues, the fountains, the curved walls, that is all Jay's vision. Circus Circus still operates. It still has circus acts performing above the casino floor. It still makes millions off the concept Jay created. But his name is gone. Why? Because Las Vegas does not celebrate dreamers who die broke. It celebrates winners. And Jay Sarno, for all his genius, for all his vision, died broke. He made other people rich, the Teamsters, the mob, the investors who took over Caesars and Circus Circus. But he did not die rich himself. And in Vegas, that is the only failure that matters. The Grandissimo blueprints are gone. The model is probably demolished or rotting in some storage unit. The architectural drawings are lost to time. Nobody preserved them because nobody thought Jay Sarno's final dream mattered. It was just the fantasy of a broke has-been chasing one last score. But here is the thing. Walk into any mega resort on the Strip today. The Venetian, the Bellagio, the Wynn. Look at the fountains, the marble, the themed restaurants, the spectacle, the audacity. That is Jay Sarno. He did not invent the casino. He invented the destination resort. The idea that people would come to Vegas not just to gamble, but to experience something impossible. Steve Wynn gets credit for modernizing Vegas. Kurt Kerkorian gets credit for building MGM. Sheldon Adelson gets credit for the Venetian, but they were all following the blueprint Jay Sarno drew in 1966 when he built Caesar's Palace. And Vegas erased him anyway. The house always wins, but it does not always remember who built it. That was the story of Jay Sarno and the Grandissimo, the casino Las Vegas pretends never existed. Which forgotten visionary do you think deserves to be remembered? Tell me in the comments. And if you love discovering the real stories behind the neon, the dreamers who built Vegas and the city that forgot them, hit subscribe. Every legend had a story, and Vegas never forgets, except when it does.